Welcome to the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. I'm Christian of Standing Stones Healing, founder of the Reiki Business Collective and creator of the Build Your Reiki Business program, sending blessings and best wishes to your Reiki business. Greetings, welcome, and thanks so much for joining me. It's Christian of Standing Stones Healing, honored to be here with you for this week's episode of the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. In this week's episode, we're talking about New Year visioning, goals, planning for your Reiki business. And in this week's episode, I'm sharing with you 3 tips for your yearly Reiki business planning. Now, if you're tuning into this episode and you're saying, ugh, I can't stand the yearly planning. Ugh, that sounds like such a drag. Oh, I'm so sick of and tired and over the New Year hype. Stick with me because this episode has some encouragement for you for sure. And if you are someone who gets really excited about the New Year planning, who gets really geeked out on the calendars and the different colored pens and the planning, yes, indeed, stick with me too, because I have some encouragement, some things that you may like and get into as well. But the first thing that I want to say about New Year visioning, planning, and goal setting in our Reiki business is that you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. You have my permission that if you don't want to set New Year goals in your Reiki business, if you don't want to do planning and visioning for the year, you don't have to. Yes, indeed, I am giving you permission to not have to do it. So often at the new year, we have a lot of pressure put on us, culturally speaking, even maybe personally, to do things like set goals, set resolutions, and have a vision for our year. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to set those visions and goals from a place of feeling cultural or personal pressure if you don't want to do it. So I'm here to encourage you to release that pressure off of yourself. I'm also here to tell you that your goals for the new year do not have to be big. They don't have to be bold. Your vision doesn't have to be firework level. You don't have to do any of that on your Reiki business journey. Maybe your goal for your Reiki business, your big Reiki business goal for the year, is to just simply stay in business. That in and of itself is a big enough goal on your Reiki business journey for the year for sure. So my tip number 1 for us, for our New Year visioning and goals and planning, is to not get overwhelmed, to not feel overwhelmed by the process of thinking about our New Year goals and visions. It's to rather take a small, incremental approach to our visioning, our goals, and our planning. When we think about New Year visioning, planning for a new year, goal setting for a new year, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. You know, I don't know about you, but to look at a calendar of a whole year can sometimes feel a little too big and a little too overwhelming. Now, I am someone who gets excited about visioning and goal setting and planning. And I also am someone who can and does get overwhelmed by the process. And so if you are someone who feels like completely like, oh my gosh, to look at a blank calendar for the year just feels like too much, I get it. And if you are thinking, I just can't even think that far ahead, Christian, that's to set a goal for the whole year is just too much. Absolutely. I get it. And you don't have to. There is no need, no requirement for us to set big overarching goals for the year in our Reiki business, and we don't have to. If you are someone who gets really overwhelmed by thinking about those big goals and visions, you can start small and you can set small incremental goals. You know, this is especially true if we are newer on our Reiki business journey. I know that there was a time in my Reiki business where I could not even conceive of a year from now on my Reiki business journey, like a year from where I was. It just seemed too big and also overwhelming. And I was just overwhelmed by what to do next. I was overwhelmed by what to do in the next week, let alone the next year. And so if this is you, you are not alone. And absolutely, you have my permission to not worry about what comes a year from now, but rather to focus on the next small step and the next increment in your Reiki business. And if you have been in Reiki business for years, you also may feel a sense of excitement about the year and at the same time a sense of overwhelm too. It's okay for us to feel all of those things all at once. And indeed, we may feel all of those things all at once. And so no matter where we are on our Reiki business journey, I want to encourage us to start small and to move forward with our planning in an incremental kind of way. To absolutely give ourselves some grace, some understanding, and some flexibility. To be kind and gentle to ourselves if we feel overwhelmed by the visioning and goal setting and strategic planning process for the year. And let's give ourselves permission to go small and to not have to go big and to not have to set those big goals for ourselves in our Reiki business, and to even indeed just have the goal of still being in business 1 year from now. One thing that has helped me with not getting overwhelmed with the planning, one thing that has helped me with moving forward in small incremental ways is to not plan out the full year and to not think about the new year visioning and strategic planning in terms of a full year, but to rather break it down into a smaller increment. In my Reiki business, I'm currently doing 12-week planning. And this means that when I set my visions and plans for my Reiki business, it's not so much for the full year. Yes, I do some overarching yearly goals, but when it comes to the real nitty-gritty of the planning in my Reiki business, I break it down into 12-week implements. This works out to about 3 months. And so I'm really approaching my Reiki business planning in 3-month increments. Now, of course, I've been in Reiki business for years, and of course, I'm not worried about not being in business at the end of the year, though of course, this is a possibility for any and all of us, right? We don't know the future. We don't know what might happen. And even though, of course, I expect to be in business a year from now, I don't know what the future might hold. I might be dead a year from now. And So even though I'm no longer worried about just setting the goal to be in business a year from now, who knows? I don't know. And any year that we can stay in business for the year is a good year for our Reiki business, because starting, building, sustaining a Reiki business is not easy. So again, let's give ourselves some grace, understanding, flexibility, and compassion. But that 12-week planning process has really been helpful for me. And so that is one way that I don't get overwhelmed in the planning for my Reiki business, is I break it down into smaller increments. So I don't have my full year planned out for my Reiki business. Now I know that things are going to come up. Like I know that the Reiki Business Summit is happening again. That is not happening in the first 12 weeks. I know there are some other things going on later in the year that aren't in the first 12 weeks. But when it comes to the to-do list, the overall goals, the planning, and the big things I want to get done, I've scheduled that out for the first 3 months of my Reiki business. And I know exactly what I'm working on in the first 3 months of my Reiki business. And so if you're thinking, wow, I can't schedule out all of my Reiki classes for the year, that's too much. I agree. That's a lot to try to worry about scheduling everything for the full year in your Reiki business. Start small and go incrementally. One of the ways I do it is with 12-week planning. You may want to do planning from month to month. You may be at a point on your Reiki business journey where you're like, Christian, I am so overwhelmed. I'm so new. I'm just planning the week to week. That's okay too. Eventually on our Reiki business journey, as we get more comfortable with where we are, as we grow and expand, the planning changes as well. And what we feel comfortable with and our comfort level shifts. And so if you are at a point where you're feeling overwhelmed with the full year, bring it down into smaller increments. You know, a year is just actually 52 weeks. So a year is just a week over and over again. Yeah, what if you did that in your Reiki business? Instead of planning out a whole year and being overwhelmed by a whole year, what if you just planned out a week and did that 52 times? There's a year. Tip number 2 on our Reiki business planning journey for our visioning, our goal setting, is to look backward in order to look forward. Now, what I mean by this is that when we think about the planning and the visioning, we're so often looking forward and looking at that blank slate, when really we already have a lot of the work done for us in some sense. In terms of looking backward at what we've already done, looking at what has worked, what maybe hasn't worked, looking at what we want to carry over from the previous year into this new year. And so for me, I do a lot of this with my Back to Center program. It's a self-paced program that I use to really help me reflect on the past year, to set intentions for the new year, and to move forward into the new year with power and purpose. And this program is so impactful that I do use it every year. And it's my own program, and I know how it works, but I still do it every year because it really and truly does have a big impact on my New Year visioning and planning. And it still, year after year, gives me great breakthroughs and insights and is so impactful for me. Now, you can get in on that program too. You can learn more and start right now at standingstoneshealing.com/back-to-center. I can tell you that if you are someone who gets overwhelmed by the thought of reflecting and setting vision and all of that, this program is really helpful. It breaks down everything into small, doable, easily accessible increments, and it for sure will get you into the reflection mode and the visioning mode. So definitely check that out. It is a self-paced program that I, of course, highly recommend because I do it every year. But one thing that is really helpful for us in looking backwards is that it helps us to know some things that we might want to release. And so as we move into the year on our Reiki business journey, it's very helpful for us to know what didn't go well, or what even did go well that we don't want to keep doing. But it's important for us to reflect in order to know what we want to release. It's important for us to reflect, to look backward in order to look forward, to know what we want to continue doing. So what went well? What did we like? What do we want to continue doing? And for us to know what we want to start doing. So looking backwards really helps us to look forward. We need to reflect first before we can really set a vision. So it's helpful for us to know what we want to stop, what we want to continue, and what we might want to start in our year on our Reiki business journey, or even in the first 3 months or week on our Reiki business journey, and looking backward at the previous year, the previous 3 months, the previous week is really going to help us to do that in setting a path forward. And so tip number 2, it's important for us to look backward in order to look forward, to reflect on where we've been in order to chart a path for where we want to go. And my number 3 tip for us on our Reiki business journey of visioning and yearly goal setting, planning, all of the things, is to have a general direction. And so while I want to encourage you to give yourself some grace and understanding, and to know that you don't have to do goal setting for the year in your Reiki business. You don't have to have a vision. You don't have to do planning. It is important for us to have a general direction. And so it is important for us to have an idea of where we want to go. And so you may look at a full year and say, this is too much. It's too overwhelming. I can't plan out a full year. Okay, that's okay. But my question for you is, what is your general overall vision? Because we do want to have that in order to help move ourselves forward. We do want to have an idea of where we're going, even if we don't know exactly the road that we're going to take. And so if on your Reiki business journey, you're saying, I don't know where this year is going to take me. I don't know what I'm going to get into. I don't know what I'm going to do in my Reiki business or where the year is going to go. It is helpful for us to have an idea of where we want to end up. And so the vision doesn't have to be fully formed. The vision in many ways can't be fully formed because life happens. But it's important for us to have a general idea of where we want to go. It's kind of like planning dinner. How many of us open up the fridge and say, oh, what am I going to have for dinner tonight? I don't know. I have no idea what I want for dinner. And then you turn to your partner, your housemate, and you say, what do you want for dinner? And they're like, I don't know. What do you want? I don't know what I want for dinner either. That's a complete lack of direction. And when we have that lack of direction, it makes it so much harder for us to figure out what we want. So let's say you know that you want to go out to eat, but you don't know. And you're like, I don't know where I want to eat. I don't know what I want to eat, but I need to go out to eat. So what do? You jump in your car. There you are with your partner, your friend, your housemate, who also doesn't know what they want to have for dinner. You've opened up the fridge, you've closed it. You're like, I don't know, let's go get something to eat. You jump in the car, you start driving, and what happens? You pass a restaurant and you're like, maybe this one looks good. Oh, it's Perkins. What do you think about Perkins? Oh, I love their pancakes. Oh, well, maybe no. And you keep driving because you're like, you just weren't sure about stopping at Perkins. And you keep driving, and then you come to a McDonald's and you're like, oh, McDonald's. Oh, I haven't had a Big Mac in so long. What do you think? Do you want a Big Mac? I don't know. What about you? I don't know. And then you've missed the turn for McDonald's. So no McDonald's for your dinner, which probably wasn't a bad choice. But you can see where this is going. Nowhere quickly, because there's no set vision. But if you jump in the car and you say, I don't know where we're going to eat, but I'm in the mood for Chinese. How about you? Yeah, I'd like some Chinese. Okay, great. Let's find somewhere to eat Chinese. Now, when you see the Chinese restaurant, oh, this is what we're looking for. Let's pull in. Having that general direction is really helpful, even if we don't know all of the details. There's oftentimes a conflict with Reiki business owners between this idea of structure versus our intuition. And we want to be open and flowing and have that flexibility because we want to have room for the intuition and to be led and guided by divine inspiration, to receive guidance from our guides, and to not have everything set in stone because we're very intuitive. And we can sometimes believe that having something like structure or a direction goes against intuition and being intuitively led. But those things are not mutually exclusive. Those things are not at odds. And we can have structure, which is very helpful for us and for our clients, while at the same time being open to intuition and to being divinely guided and led. I know that I have both of those things in my Reiki business. My Reiki business has a lot of structure, but at the same time, it has space for flexibility, intuition, divine guidance to come in. And so when, number 3 tip, we have a general direction, we can have an idea of what we want to accomplish, where we're moving towards, where we're going, and have a general structure, like an idea that we want Chinese food, but we still have room for spontaneity, flexibility, and intuition to allow things to come up. And so for our yearly visioning, our goal setting, our planning, it doesn't have to be structured, and yet it can have just enough structure to allow us the freedom of having direction. So, definitely on your Reiki business planning journey, don't get overwhelmed. Start small. Go in increments, break it down smaller and smaller, as small as you need to, no matter where you are on your Reiki business journey. Number 2, look backward in order to look forward. Reflect to know what is going well, to know what is not going so well, and to make adjustments as necessary for your new year. What do you want to release? What do you want to stop doing? What do you want to continue doing? What do you want to start doing? And number 3, have that general direction. Have an idea of where you are going on your Reiki business journey. So where are you going on your Reiki business journey? What are you visioning for your new year in your Reiki business? What are your goals? Are you setting any? How are you setting them? How are you doing your new year planning and visioning? Tell us all about it in the Reiki Business Collective Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Reiki Biz. And yes, indeed, you can jump in on that Back to Center program and start right now with the reflections, the visioning, and the moving forward on your Reiki business journey. standingstoneshealing.com/back to center. The link is down below. Sending so many blessings and best wishes for your Reiki business. Thanks for tuning in to the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, and send to a friend. Learn more about the Build Your Reiki Business program at standingstoneshealing.com/build. Sending blessings and best wishes to your Reiki business.